My name is Adrian Crawford. I'm 32 years old. 2 months ago, on Thanksgiving night, in front of more than 30 relatives, my parents handed my sister a $13,000 luxury cruise and gave me a wrinkled $2 lottery ticket like it was a joke that had finally landed. "This feels more appropriate for your situation, Adrian," my mother said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. People laughed, not politely, not awkwardly. They actually laughed. I remember standing there, holding that thin piece of paper between my fingers, feeling every pair of eyes in the room measuring me, and finding me lacking. My brother-in-law leaned back in his chair, smirking. "Maybe you'll win $5, he said. More laughter. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because I'd spent my entire life learning how to stand still when I was being reduced to nothing. What they didn't know, what none of them could have imagined, was that the same ticket they used to humiliate me in front of 30 witnesses was worth $100 million. $100 million changes everything, not in the way people think. It doesn't fix your family. It doesn't heal what's broken. It just shows you exactly who they've been all along. And that night, standing there with a $2 ticket in my hand and their laughter still echoing in my ears, something in me didn't break. It went quiet. And once it went quiet, I stopped being the person they thought they could control. Thanksgiving at my parents' house was never about warmth. It was a performance. Everyone had a role, and mine had been decided a long time ago. I pulled into the driveway at exactly 5, carrying a homemade autumn salad and a small bundle of flowers I'd grown myself, dark red, almost black at the edges. Took me months to get them right. My mother opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes dropped to the flowers, then back to my face, still working with plants. "I see, urban planning, Mom." But I didn't correct her. I hadn't corrected her in years. From inside, I heard a burst of laughter. My sister had just arrived. My mother brushed past me without another word. "There's my girl," she called out, arms already open. I stood in the doorway for a second longer than I should have, then stepped inside on my own. The house was full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, people who barely remembered my name, but somehow always remembered my place. My father didn't get up when I walked in. He was sitting in his recliner, talking to Marcus. "Adrian, good. You're here," he said, not looking at me. "We need help setting the table." "Of course." I moved through the house quietly, setting plates, folding napkins, refilling glasses, background noise with hands. In the living room, everyone gathered around Marcus as he talked about his latest deal. Real estate, big numbers, bigger promises. People leaned in like he was saying something important. I watched from a distance. Something about him never sat right with me. Too smooth, too practiced. But instincts don't count as evidence. Aunt Marlene caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a small, almost apologetic smile. Later, my mother introduced me to a distant cousin. "This is Adrian, my son. He does something with land. I design urban infrastructure projects," I said calmly. She waved her hand. "Same thing." I nodded. "Some battles aren't worth fighting. Not when you already know how they end, in this family." Vivian was the future. I was the extra pair of hands. I was in the kitchen refilling a water pitcher when I heard them. The door wasn't fully closed, just enough for voices to slip through. My mother. My father. "Vivian, December 15th. My mom was saying. 2 weeks, Caribbean. Everything's already booked." I slowed my movements, careful not to make a sound. "All of us?" Vivian asked. "Of course. You. Marcus. The kids, your father and I, even Grandma if she's feeling up to it." My grip tightened around the pitcher. A pause. Then Vivian again. Casual. Like she was checking a box. "What about Adrian's silence? The kind that says everything." My father cleared his throat. "He's busy with work. And a trip like this isn't really his kind of thing." "We didn't want to make him uncomfortable," my mother added quickly. "Uncomfortable, right. They hadn't asked me, hadn't mentioned it, hadn't even considered including me. They had already decided I didn't belong." I pushed the door open. "So, I'm not invited." 3 faces turned toward me. My mother's smile appeared instantly. Tight, controlled. "Sweetheart, this is just a small family celebration." I let out a quiet breath. "This is a family trip. It's not about you, Adrian," Vivian said softly. "We just figured you wouldn't be interested. You're independent." Independent, that word again. The one they used when they meant unnecessary. I was about to respond when I felt it. A presence behind me. I turned. Grandma stood in the hallway, one hand gripping her walker, watching everything. Her eyes met mine. Sharp. Aware. She stepped closer, reached out, and squeezed my hand. No words. But I understood. I wasn't imagining any of this. Dinner didn't start right away. My father stood up first. Tapping his glass with a fork, the room quieted almost instantly. "Before we eat," he said, smiling like a man who'd rehearsed this moment, "I want to thank everyone for being here. Family is everything." Around 30 people nodded. Agreed. Played their parts. I stood near the edge of the dining room, already knowing I wasn't part of whatever came next. "This year," he continued, "your mother and I wanted to do something special for our daughters." Daughters. He gestured toward Vivian. "Vivian, sweetheart, come here." She stepped forward, graceful, confident, like she knew exactly what was waiting for her. My mother handed her a thick envelope, beaming. "For you, Marcus, and the kids. A 14-day Caribbean cruise, first class." The reaction was instant. Gasps, applause, people leaning forward. Vivian covered her mouth, eyes shining. "Oh my God. Thank you." She hugged them both. Perfectly framed for the moment. Perfect daughter. Perfect scene. I didn't move. Then my mother turned to me. The room quieted again, but this time, it felt different. "Adrian," she said, "come here, honey." I walked forward slowly. Every step felt deliberate, measured. She handed me a thin envelope, too light, I already knew. Inside was a single lottery ticket. Crumpled, cheap, $2. "This," she said, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes, "feels more appropriate for your situation." A beat. Then someone laughed, then another. Marcus leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, watching me. "Hey," he added casually, "maybe you'll get lucky. Though, luck only goes so far when you don't have much to work with." More laughter. Vivian giggled. "That's actually kind of cute, Mom." Cute. I looked down at the ticket in my hand. For a second, everything slowed. The noise, the room, the people. 30 witnesses, 30 people watching me be reduced to a punchline. My face didn't change, I didn't react, but something inside me shifted. Not cracked, not broke, shifted. I folded the ticket once and slipped it into my pocket. "Thank you," I said evenly. "I'm sure it's exactly what I deserve." No one caught the edge in my voice, but I did. The laughter was still lingering when another voice cut through the room. "Gerald, Patricia, this is not right." Silence. Everyone turned. Grandma stood at the edge of the dining room. No walker this time, just sheer will holding her upright. "You do not treat him like this," she said, her voice thin but steady. "Not in front of everyone. Not ever." My father's jaw tightened. "Mom, I'm not finished." But my mother was already moving. "Come on," she said, forcing a smile. "You need to rest." She guided Grandma toward the hallway before she could say more. As they passed me, Grandma slowed. Her hand brushed mine. Her eyes locked onto mine. Then, just for a second, she glanced toward her old leather bag by the window and whispered, barely audible, "Call Thomas Smith." Then she was gone. The room exhaled. Conversations resumed. Like nothing had happened. But I stood there, still holding the weight of that moment, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let it go. By the time most of the guests had left, it was close to midnight. Nothing had changed. Vivian and Marcus were in the living room, laughing over cruise plans. My parents were at the front door, saying their long, performative goodbyes. And I was where I always was, cleaning up. I carried a stack of plates past my father's study when I noticed the door slightly open. The light was still on. That was unusual. He was meticulous about that kind of thing. I pushed the door open. Papers were scattered across his desk, not organized, not hidden. Left behind, like he'd stepped away in a hurry. I set the plates down slowly and stepped closer. Bills, overdue notices, a letter stamped in red from a collection agency. Then, I saw it. A contract. Loan agreement, my father's name, and Marcus. $180,000. The interest rate made my stomach tighten. It wasn't aggressive, it was predatory. I flipped to the next page. Collateral. My chest went still. Grandma's house. The house she'd lived in for 50 years. There it was, her signature. Shaky. Uneven. Dated 6 months ago. The same month she'd been hospitalized. Drugged on pain medication. Barely coherent. I didn't think. I just moved. Pulled out my phone. Took pictures. Every page. Every signature. My hands were steady. Too steady. Because something had just clicked into place. This wasn't favoritism. This wasn't about loving Vivian more. I wasn't the least important. I was the problem. The one who might notice, the one who might ask questions, the one they needed to keep small. Invisible. I slid the documents back exactly how I found them. Picked up the plates, walked out. But I wasn't the same person who walked in. Not anymore. A week after Thanksgiving, I finally remembered the ticket. It had been sitting on my kitchen counter the entire time. Crumpled, ignored. Exactly where I'd left it. Exactly how they saw me. I picked it up, turning it over between my fingers. $2. That was the value they assigned to me in front of 30 people. For a second, I almost threw it away. Then, I didn't. I opened the Mega Millions app and typed in the numbers. No expectations, no anticipation, just curiosity. The first number matched. I paused. Second number matched. My thumb hovered over the screen. Third, fourth, fifth, all matched. I didn't breathe. The last number appeared. Matched. I stared at the screen. Then refreshed it. Same result. Checked the official website. Same numbers, same outcome. $100 million. I sat there for a long time. No reaction, no celebration, no disbelief. Just silence. Then one thought surfaced. Clear and precise. This changes everything. Not because of the money, because of what it gave me. Control, options, distance. For 32 years, I had been reacting to them, to their expectations, to their version of who I was supposed to be. Now, I didn't have to. I didn't call my parents, didn't tell Vivian, didn't post anything, didn't spend $1. Instead, I searched one thing. What to do after winning the lottery, and one name came back to me immediately. Thomas Smith. My grandmother hadn't said it by accident, so I made the call. Mr. Smith, I said when he picked up. My voice steady. My name is Adrian Crawford. A pause. Then my grandmother told me to contact you. Another pause. Longer this time. And I think I just won $100 million. Silence. Then his voice returned. Sharper now. Then you need to come see me, immediately. Good. That's exactly what I was planning to do. Thomas Smith's office felt exactly like I expected. Old wood, leather, quiet authority, the kind of place where things didn't happen by accident. He studied me for a moment before speaking. Not surprised. Just measuring. Your grandmother said you might call, he said. I nodded. She told me to contact you. I didn't know why. He slid a folder across the desk. 10 years ago, he said calmly. Your grandmother established a trust in your name. I didn't touch the folder yet. How much? $500,000. I blinked once. Not because of the amount, because of what it meant. She never told me. She didn't want to. He replied. She was afraid your mother would find a way to take it. That tracked. I opened the folder. Legal documents, bank records, everything clean, everything real. For the first time, something settled in my chest. Not validation. Recognition. There's more, he added. I looked up. Your grandmother's house. I leaned back slightly. I saw the paperwork. He nodded. The deed transfer is questionable. Signed the day after she was hospitalized. Heavy medication, limited awareness. Fraud, I said, potentially. But difficult to prove without pressure. I already understood what that meant. Time, strategy, leverage. Your father owes Marcus Pierce $180,000. Thomas continued. The house is collateral. If the loan defaults, Marcus takes ownership. Pieces aligned, clean, predictable. So, what are my options? I asked. With your current financial position, he said carefully. You have all of them. I held his gaze. Then, we protect her. A small pause. Then, he nodded once. Good answer. For the first time, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was deciding. I met Aunt Marlene 2 days later. Same coffee shop she'd mentioned. Quiet, out of the way. The kind of place people chose when they didn't want to be overheard. She looked different than she had at Thanksgiving. Tired. Like she'd been carrying something for too long. You saw the papers, didn't you? She asked the second she sat down. I nodded. Tell me about Marcus. She hesitated. Not because she didn't know. Because she did. He's not a consultant, she said finally. Not really. He lends money, high interest. The kind of rates that trap people. That lined up. There's more, she added. Pulling out her phone, she unlocked it, scrolled. Then turned the screen toward me. Messages. Explicit, direct. Between Marcus and someone named Diana, his assistant. Marlene said quietly. They've been involved for months. I read the messages. Not rushed, not emotional. Just processing. Once the house deal closes, I'm out. She served her purpose. I leaned back slightly. Vivian knows. Marlene shook her head. I don't think so. She's too focused on being perfect. The marriage, the image, the life. She doesn't question things that benefit her. That wasn't entirely her fault, it was the system she'd been raised in. Golden child, protected, rewarded, used. She's not the target, I said after a moment. Marlene looked at me, surprised. No, I continued. She's part of the structure, but that she's not the one running it. Marcus was. And my parents were enabling it. Marlene's voice dropped. You need to be careful, Adrian. Marcus isn't someone you confront lightly. I met her eyes. I'm not planning to confront him, not directly, not yet, because this wasn't about exposing one lie. It was about exposing all of them, at the right time, in the right place, with no way for them to walk it back. I stood up, leaving cash on the table. Thank you, Aunt Marlene. She reached for my hand. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I nodded once. It's not too late, not anymore. The nursing home smelled like antiseptic and something fading. Time. Maybe. Grandma's room was small, but the light was good. Sun coming through the window, hitting the edge of her bed. She looked smaller than I remembered, but her eyes still sharp. Adrian, she said. Her voice thin but steady. I moved closer, pulled a chair beside her bed. I talked to Thomas. She nodded once. Good. He's a man who still understands right from wrong. I studied her for a moment. Why didn't you tell me about the trust? A faint smile touched her lips. Because your mother would have taken it. And you? You never asked me for anything. That landed heavier than I expected. I saw the house documents, I said. They made you sign. Her gaze shifted, distant for a second. I remember pieces, not clearly. I was in pain. Everything felt foggy. I clenched my jaw. We're fixing it, I said. I'm not letting them take your house. She looked back at me, then her expression changed slightly. There's something else, she said. You're holding something in. I held her gaze, then I told her. About the ticket, about the numbers, about the 100 million. She didn't react the way most people would. She laughed, soft, dry. Karma. She whispered. I almost smiled. I'm going to get your house back, I said. Whatever it costs. Her hand reached up, resting against my cheek. I don't need revenge, Adrian. Her voice was quiet but firm. I need you to be free and to protect what's right. I nodded once. I will. Her grip tightened slightly. Promise me something. Anything. Don't become like them. That one stayed. I leaned forward, pressing a light kiss to her forehead. I won't. And for the first time since all of this started, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, the family gathered again, not for me, for them. A farewell dinner before the cruise. I was invited but not as a guest. Adrian. Can you handle the centerpieces, Adrian? The caterer needs direction, Adrian. Make sure Grandma's nurse has everything she needs while we're gone. I did it all. Calm, efficient, invisible. Just like they expected. The dining room looked perfect by the time everyone sat down. Candles aligned, flowers balanced, every detail in place. No one thanked me, they never did. Marcus was at the center of it all, describing the trip like it was already a highlight reel. Private excursions, chef's table, spa packages, he said, leaning back like he owned the room. My father laughed, clapping him on the shoulder. Best thing that ever happened to this family? I watched that. Not reacting. Just storing it. Vivian glanced at me across the table. Too bad you couldn't come, she said lightly. But someone has to stay behind and water Mom's plants. I gave a small nod. I don't mind. That wasn't entirely a lie. Marcus leaned toward me, voice low enough to sound casual, loud enough for others to hear. Bought any more lottery tickets lately? A few people chuckled. Maybe you'll get lucky this time. I met his gaze. Luck has a way of showing up when people least expect it. He smirked. He thought it was a joke. Let him. My mother raised her glass. To family. To success. To everything we've built. Everyone drank. I lifted my water, took a small sip, and stayed quiet. Because while they celebrated, I had already moved past this version of the story. The LLC was set up. The claim would be anonymous. Legal groundwork in motion. Every document reviewed. Every move calculated. They thought they were in control. They thought the story was already written. It wasn't. Not even close. 12 days, that's how long they'd be out at sea. 12 days where they couldn't leave, couldn't avoid each other, couldn't escape what was coming. I sat back in my chair, watching them laugh, plan, congratulate themselves. And for the first time, I wasn't the one being managed. I was the one choosing when everything would change. They were 3 days into the cruise when everything started to shift. I didn't call them, didn't text, didn't reach out. Instead, I posted one thing. A single photo on Instagram, me standing in front of my grandmother's house. Caption: renovation starting soon. Nothing else. I knew my father would see it. He always watched from a distance. Later that same day, the news broke. Mega Millions jackpot claimed. Winner anonymous. Location a convenience store less than 3 miles from my parents' house. I didn't plan that part. But it worked. Aunt Marlene dropped it casually into the family group chat. Did you guys see this? Someone from our area just won $100 million. The chat exploded. Speculation, jokes, people tagging each other. Then, a private message. Mom, Adrian, that lottery ticket I gave you. You still have it? Right, I waited. An hour. Let the silence stretch, then replied. Yeah. Why 3 dots appeared? Disappeared. Then, no reason. Just curious. That was when the calls started, one after another. Mom, Dad, Vivian, Marcus. I let them ring. Every time. By evening, I had over 40 missed calls. By midnight, almost 80. Voicemails stacked up like pressure building behind a wall. Concerned at first, then urgent, then desperate. I listened to a few. Adrian. Honey, just call me back, this is important. Family business. And then Marcus. Calm, smooth. Hey. Adrian. We should talk. There might be some opportunities here for all of us. Of course, not for me. For all of us. I set my phone face down. Let them keep wondering. Because for the first time, they weren't ignoring me. They were chasing me. And they had no idea. They were already too late. At exactly 8:00 p.m., I joined the call. No delay, no hesitation. Their faces filled the screen almost instantly, crowded together in what looked like the ship's lounge. Behind them, the ocean stretched out under a fading sunset. Perfect setting. Adrian, my mother's voice came first. Warm, overcompensating. There you are. We've been so worried. Yeah. Kid, my father added quickly. You've been hard to reach. Vivian leaned into frame, forcing a smile. You look good. Everything okay? Marcus didn't say anything. He just watched. That same calculating look. I sat back slightly. Calm. I'll keep this simple, I said. I know you've been calling. My father leaned forward. We heard something, he said. About a lottery ticket. I didn't blink. I won. Silence. Then chaos. Oh my God. Are you serious? How much, Adrian? That's incredible. Voices overlapping. Excitement. Shock. I let it run. Let them react. Let them show exactly who they were. Then I spoke again. $100 million. Everything stopped. My mother's hand flew to her chest. Vivian looked like she'd just lost balance. My father didn't speak. Marcus recovered first. Adrian, he said smoothly, leaning forward now. Fully engaged. That kind of money you're going to need structure, protection, smart investments. I can help you. I already have a lawyer. I cut in. A flicker. Small. But I saw it. Of course, he said quickly. But having someone in the family, someone you trust. This isn't about money, I said. That's when the tone changed. Subtle. But real. What is it about? Then my father asked. I held his gaze. The truth. I shared my screen. First document. Loan agreement. Names visible. Numbers clear. $180. 000. Marcus. My father. The reaction was immediate. My father's face drained. Where did you get that? He snapped. I didn't answer. I clicked to the next page. Collateral. Grandma's house. Signed. Dated. You used her house, I said evenly. As collateral. While she was under heavy medication, barely aware of what she was signing. That's not. My mother started. Medical records say otherwise. I cut in. Silence again. Heavier this time. Marcus shifted in his seat. Adrian. You don't understand the full context. I understand enough. Click. Next screen. Messages. Marcus. Diana. Explicit. Unfiltered. Damning. Vivian froze. Her face didn't move. What is that? She asked. Barely audible. I didn't look at Marcus. I looked at her. Ask him. Marcus stood up abruptly. That's taken out of context. Read it, I said. She did. I watched it happen. The moment everything collapsed behind her eyes. Once the house deal closes, I'm out. She served her purpose. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Marcus, she whispered. He didn't answer. Didn't defend. Didn't deny again. He just stepped out of frame. That told her everything. My mother started crying. My father sat frozen. And for the first time no one was laughing. This is what's going to happen, I said. No emotion, no anger. Just clarity. I'm paying off the loan. My father looked up. Adrian. I'm clearing the lien on Grandma's house, I continued. Legally, completely. You don't need to, he tried. I do. I leaned forward slightly. And once it's done, none of you will have any claim to it. Silence, Adrian. We're family, my mother said weakly. I held her gaze. Family doesn't steal from a 90-year-old woman. That landed. Hard. No one argued. No one could. I'm not doing this for you, I said. I'm doing it for her. Vivian was still staring at the screen. Not at me. At the messages. At the version of her life that had just been exposed. This wasn't about a lottery ticket, I added. It wasn't about money. I let that sit. Then, it was about seeing who you really are when you think I have something you want. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. I reached for the mouse, paused for half a second, looked at all of them one last time, then ended the call just like that. No goodbye, no closure. Just truth. And silence. The silence after the call felt heavier than anything that came before it. I didn't move right away. The screen went black, but I kept staring at it like something might still be there if I waited long enough. It wasn't, just me. And the quiet, I'd imagined that moment more than once. Thought it would feel like something definitive. Victory, closure, maybe even relief. It didn't. It felt empty. Like finishing something that had been part of you for too long. My phone started buzzing within seconds. Calls, messages, notifications stacking on top of each other. I didn't check them. Didn't need to. I already knew what they'd say. Shock, anger, damage control. Not one of them had called to ask if I was okay before. That hadn't changed. A knock at the door broke the silence. I frowned. No one had this address. I checked through the peephole. Aunt Marlene. I opened the door. She looked at me for half a second, then pulled me into a hug. You did it, she said quietly. You finally said everything, did I? I stepped back. I don't feel like I did anything. She gave me a look. That's because you weren't trying to win, she said. You were telling the truth. That sat with me. I leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. They're going to say I destroyed the family. Marlene shook her head. They destroyed it a long time ago. You just turned the lights on. My phone buzzed again. This time, I picked it up. A message. Vivian. I didn't know. Another one. I swear I didn't know about him. Then, I'm sorry. Adrian. I read it twice, then locked my phone. I don't know if she means it, I said. Marlene didn't rush to answer. You don't have to decide that tonight. She was right. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being pushed into a reaction. I had space. Actual space. The legal process moved faster than I expected. With the documents I'd gathered, and Marlene willing to speak if needed, Thomas pushed forward aggressively. The loan, the lien, the transfer, everything was being challenged. And I made the call before anyone could ask me to reconsider. Pay it off, I told Thomas, all of it. The number didn't matter. $200,000. $215,000. It was nothing now. But what it represented, that mattered. It meant she got her house back. It meant they lost control. It meant something was finally corrected. A few days later, I stood outside that house again. Same place as the photo I'd posted. Same place they thought they had already taken. But this time, I wasn't standing there as an outsider. I was standing there as the one who decided what happened next. And for the first time, that felt real. Marcus tried to get ahead of it. Of course he did. Within 24 hours of the call, he started controlling the narrative. Photoshopped, he told people, taken out of context. Adrian's unstable. Always has been. For a moment, it almost worked, because people like Marcus don't survive by telling the truth. They survive by saying it confidently enough that others hesitate. But then Diana spoke. 3 days after the call, she went public. Everything. Photos, messages, hotel bookings, dates. Not just hints. Proof. And not quietly either. She posted everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. One video in particular spread fast, her sitting in her car. Mascara streaked, voice shaking but sharp. He told me he was leaving his wife, she said. He told me the house deal was the last step. That once it closed, he was done with her. There it was, the missing piece. Now, it wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. Vivian filed for divorce before the ship even docked. No announcement, no drama. Just paperwork. Marcus disappeared for a while after that. But it didn't end there. Because when one thing breaks, other things follow. 2 former clients came forward, then a third, then more. Complaints, predatory loans, interest rates that didn't just cross ethical lines, they crossed legal ones. An investigation opened. Quiet at first. Then, not so quiet. I didn't do anything, didn't push it, didn't need to. The truth has momentum once it starts moving. My father's situation unraveled slower, but just as completely. The shop he'd owned for decades. Gone. Bankruptcy filings within a month. Debt he couldn't outrun anymore. Not without Marcus covering it, and Marcus was gone. My mother lost something different. Not money. Status. The circles she cared about, the ones built on appearances and quiet comparisons, they stopped calling, stopped inviting. People notice when things shift, even if no one says it out loud. I heard all of this secondhand. Through Marlene, through fragments. I didn't go looking, didn't follow updates, didn't need confirmation because none of it surprised me. Not anymore. One afternoon, sitting with Grandma in her living room, her house, fully hers again, she looked at me and said quietly, "I told you I believed in karma." I nodded. Not because I believed in karma the way she did, but because I understood something now. You don't have to destroy people, you just have to stop protecting the version of them that isn't real, and eventually everything else handles itself. The first message from Vivian turned into a pattern. Short at first. Careful. Like she didn't know what she was allowed to say. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I should have seen it." I didn't respond right away. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't know what the right response was. Apologies don't fix patterns, they just acknowledge them. A week later, a letter showed up. Handwritten. That alone told me more than the words inside. Vivian had never written me a letter before. Not once. I sat at my kitchen table and read it slowly. She didn't defend herself, didn't make excuses. She admitted what mattered. She knew things were off. She chose not to look, because looking would have cost her everything she'd built her identity on. The perfect life, the perfect marriage, the version of herself that only worked as long as no one questioned it. And then she wrote something that stayed with me. "You were my brother. I should have stood next to you, not above you." I read that line twice, then folded the letter and set it aside. Not dismissed, just not decided. We met a few weeks later. Coffee. Neutral ground. No family. No history sitting in the room with us. At least, not visibly. It was awkward. There's no version of that meeting where it isn't. You don't undo 30 years of imbalance in a single conversation. "You look different," she said at one point. I shrugged. "I probably just stopped pretending." She gave a small, tired smile. "Yeah, that makes two of us." We didn't talk about Marcus much, didn't need to. That part of her life had already collapsed. What mattered was everything before that. "I knew they treated you differently," she admitted at one point, staring down at her coffee. "I just told myself you didn't care." "I did," I said. "Simple, no edge, just fact." She nodded. I figured. That was the closest thing to honesty we'd ever had. No performance, no roles, just two people trying to understand what had actually happened between them. We didn't hug when we left, didn't promise anything, but we didn't walk away either, and that mattered. My parents were different. No letter, no real apology. My mother called once, twice, each time circling around the same thing, what they lost, not what they did. I kept the conversations short, neutral, boundaried. "I'm not discussing the past unless you're ready to take responsibility for it," I told her once. She didn't like that, didn't agree, didn't change. So nothing moved. My father never called, not once. I heard he was working again, somewhere smaller, quieter. That felt appropriate. People assume reconciliation is a moment. It's not. It's a series of decisions. What you allow, what you don't, who you let back in, and how far. With Vivian, the door wasn't closed, but it wasn't open either. It was controlled. And for the first time in my life, that choice was mine. A year later, my life looked completely different, not louder, not more extravagant, just clearer. I still worked. That surprised people when they found out. What's the point, they'd ask. You don't need the money. They were right. I didn't. But I wasn't working for money anymore. I was working because it was mine, my projects, my decisions, my name on something real. The firm had grown slowly, intentionally. 2 new hires, better clients, projects I would have never been considered for before. Not because I wasn't capable back then, because I wasn't seen. That changed, not overnight, but steadily. The money sat where it needed to be structured, protected, mostly untouched. Investments handled through people I trusted. Systems I understood. It gave me space. That's all I ever wanted, space to choose. I bought a house about 10 minutes from my grandmother. Nothing excessive, clean, quiet, enough room to breathe. I adopted a dog a few months after everything settled. A mutt from a shelter. Didn't listen well. Dug holes everywhere. Perfect. I named him Clover. Most mornings started the same. Coffee, emails, then a walk over to Grandma's house. She was home now. Fully. Not a visitor in her own life anymore. We spent a lot of time in the garden. It had been neglected for years. Overgrown, uneven, forgotten. I fixed it. Not all at once. Piece by piece, like everything else. Your tulips are coming in. I told her one morning. She looked out the window, smiling slightly. You planted those. They're still yours, I said. She nodded. Everything good I ever had, she said quietly, came from sharing it with the right people. I didn't respond right away, because I understood what she meant and what she didn't say. The foundation was her idea. I just made it real. The Grace Mitchell Foundation. Scholarships for students going into design, environmental work, architecture fields people often dismissed as impractical. People like me, people who had been told their work didn't matter, their choices didn't make sense, their value wasn't obvious. Every acceptance letter we sent out felt like correcting something, not fixing the world, just balancing it a little. People still asked about my family, where they were, if things had been resolved. The truth was, it depends on what you mean by resolved. My parents lived across town now. Smaller place, different life. We spoke occasionally. Short messages, careful conversations. My father would text on my birthday. Hope you're doing well, I'd respond. You too. That was enough. For now, my mother still hadn't apologized, not really. She talked about circumstances, about how things had turned out, about what could have been different, but never about what she had done. So I kept my distance, not out of anger, out of clarity. Vivian was different. We met more regularly now. Coffee turned into lunch sometimes. Conversations got easier. Still not natural, but honest. And that mattered more. I didn't realize how much of it wasn't real. She told me once. Our family. I nodded. We were all playing roles, she exhaled. Yeah. I just didn't know I had a choice. Now she did. We both did. As for Marcus, I didn't follow what happened to him. Didn't check updates. Didn't ask questions. Some people don't need to stay in your story, even as a reference. The question I get the most is always the same. Did the money change your life? The answer is not in the way people think. It didn't make me who I am now. It just removed the things that were keeping me from being that person. What changed my life was a moment. A single moment where I realized I had spent 32 years waiting for people to see my value. And they never would. Not because it wasn't there, because they weren't looking. The lottery ticket wasn't the turning point, it was the proof. Proof that the people who should have valued me only paid attention when they thought I had something they could take. That realization was worth more than anything attached to a number. I didn't need permission anymore. Didn't need validation. Didn't need a seat at a table that was never built for me. I built my own, quietly, deliberately. And I chose who got to sit at it. That was the real change. Not the money, the decision to stop waiting. If there's one thing this entire story taught me, it's this. You don't need $100 million to walk away from a place where you're not valued. You don't need luck. You don't need permission. And you definitely don't need to keep proving yourself to people who already decided who you are. For most of my life, I thought if I worked hard enough, stayed patient enough, proved myself enough, they'd see me. They didn't. And they never were going to. Not because I wasn't worth seeing, because they weren't looking. That's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the problem isn't you. It's the room you're in. And the moment you realize that everything changes, you stop shrinking, you stop explaining, you stop accepting less than what you know you bring to the table. And if they won't give you a seat, you build your own. Or you leave. Simple as that. The lottery didn't free me. The decision did. The decision to stop waiting. To stop hoping they'd become people they never showed any signs of being. To finally choose myself. So if you're watching this and something in this story feels familiar, take that seriously. That feeling, that's your answer. You already know what you need to do. You've just been waiting for a reason. This is it. If this story resonated with you, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Like the video if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. Subscribe if you want more stories like this. And remember, you are not worth what they give you. You are worth what you decide you are. I'm Adrian Crawford, and that was my real jackpot. This story is created by Fish Tells Stories for entertainment purposes only. Do not replicate or apply any actions from this content in real life.